Hey everybody, wow, why is the lighting so bad? Adjust camera. Gosh, why is it when I go live, like I get messages, phone calls, and everything? Hold on 1 second, I'm just pulling it up so I can see on my phone. Where did it go? Here we are. See on my phone. Hear myself. What is up, Ann? How are you? I'm so excited that you're on. So, how's everybody's day going? It's Wednesday. It's a beautiful day here in Saratoga Springs, Utah, and I've been doing a lot of nerding out. Today's topic is all about webinars, how to use stories in webinars, and how those stories prime your audience and the viewers to buy. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. How's everybody's week going? What challenges, what things have you been seeing and working on this week? And what stories have you been telling? Go in the comments and tell me what you have been up to. And if you're struggling or stuck with anything, especially when it comes to using stories to sell your products, go and share those with me, because I will go to work, I will study, I will come back with answers, and I'll do something that's directed towards helping you get better. Okay? How's that sound? So let's go ahead and begin with how using stories in webinars is the way to sell more stuff. Hey, oh man, life is good, isn't it? I've been having some great conversations with some people earlier today before I kind of locked myself away and was preparing and studying and nerding out about today's topic. And it's just good things happen when you are surrounded by good people. So I want to take a minute before I get started just to express gratitude to all of you who watch these videos, who comment and like, who have followed me on my journey, who are new to my journey, who have been with me for a little while. Thank you for watching, participating, and being a part of my world. So many times we get focused on, especially when we have something that we know affects and changes lives and helps people, we get so focused on wanting everybody to come and take our thing or buy our thing or hire us to help them or whatever it might be. And last night, I was thinking a lot about this and how sometimes I personally get frustrated when I see friends or peers that know what I do and know me pretty darn well, but then they go to somebody else to get things done that I could help them with, right? And how I feel like, what the heck, right? And again, I came to the realization and remembered that the important part is to focus on the people who are actively engaging with you and swimming towards you. Sean, oh man, I just forgot his last name. There's this guy, I'll remember his name, but he talks about how the Coast Guard prioritizes who they rescue. They put the first priority and rescue the people who are swimming towards the boat. And you who show up every day, who watch the replays, who watch live, who comment, who share, who just send me messages and stuff, you are the ones swimming towards me, and I am so grateful for you. And I'm putting all of my focus into serving and helping you guys because I want you to learn and I have so much that I know, and I know a lot of people look at my talents and skills like I have superpowers or it's witchcraft or something, right? And so I want to show you that, yes, I have skills, but I can show you things that you can put to work immediately and start to think about and implement. And then if you still get stuck or want extra help, I am always here and I'm happy to help and serve and get you guys moving in the right direction. So I just wanted to say thank you to you guys for just being incredible and a great support. I love every one of you. And it means the world that you like and comment and share. So feel free to do that as often as you can because it's good and it will help more people see it. So with that said, who is ready Get ready. Who is ready to dive into talking about webinars and stories and how those stories help you sell more stuff through your webinars? Anybody ready for that? Can I see a raise of hands? Can I see some hearts, some likes, all of those things? Who is ready and excited to dive into this? So, because I sure am. I've been thinking about this for a while, like for a few weeks actually. But today I really started actually writing stuff out and kind of geeking out about it. So, very cool. 1 second. I'm going to do something here before I dive in. I'm going to post something on my... Cool. Okay, so I'm just doing a little watch party. So here we go. Anne is ready. Everyone else is ready. So who here, first of all, how many of you use webinars in your sales, marketing, all that kind of stuff? Do you use them or are you in the mode of I need to, but I'm still working on it? Or are you what the heck is a webinar? Give me a comment and tell me where you are in that. So here is the thing. What in the heck is a webinar anyway? So a webinar is a way to be able to present and sell a product, service, course, that kind of stuff, coaching. That's what it's used a lot for, but it's also a way to be able to sell health programs or, information products that are more than just a coaching program or just a little self-taught course and stuff. And it's used to sell high ticket things. It's used to sell tickets to events. All these kinds of things. And so if you're not using webinars, and I have not actually done my first live set up a funnel and get a whole thing and go through email sequences to build up everything to do a webinar. I have not done one myself. I am preparing to do one because I've been working on something that's super cool that you guys are going to hear about in the near future. But as I've been reading and studying and looking into it, I've learned a ton about the importance of story. And I'm seeing the importance of story in a successful webinar. Now, what's a successful webinar? Let's say you go out and you do ads and you get all these opt-ins and you have 300 people or something show up on a live webinar. A successful webinar is not having them show up. That's a successful campaign. A successful webinar is when the people buy your product at the end. So that means you go through 60, 90, 120, 120 minutes. You go from 1 hour to 2 hours sometimes to go through a webinar. So that means you've kept somebody on from the beginning all the way through. Or if they came in halfway, it was engaging enough in the middle that they stuck through to the end, right? So how do you do that in a webinar? It's one thing to get butts in seats. It's another thing to keep butts in seats, right? So some of you may know this book. And if you do not, let me know in the comments and I will send you a link to get a free copy for yourself. It's an amazing book that kind of walks through what Russell Brunson calls the perfect webinar, right? And the structure of it, the outline of this is the journey you bring people on. But there are so many open gaps on all the things that you do to put into each one of those subjects. And so I have kind of broken down all the subjects and I have some cool, I was kind of walk you through the types of stories that you need to be putting and thinking about and developing to put into a webinar that will make it successful. And what is success in a webinar? Getting people all the way to the end and clicking buy, purchase, whatever that might be, okay? That is the definition of a successful webinar. Selling, making money. You may have spent money on ads on the front end. You're getting that back plus some because you have sold a product, a course, whatever it is that you're building this. So I want to show you the framework of a webinar, but then I want to show and talk about the types of stories that you need to be building to really connect and keep people through the entire 60, 90, 120 minutes, whatever it might be. And if you wait to the end, I have a great example of stories throughout a webinar that crushed it. Like, I'm not saying it was just successful. Like, it was insane what they did and how much money they made and how much stuff they sold. Okay, so stay all the way to the end to get the link to that example webinar. You don't have to go and register. You just click on the link and you can watch it. Okay, so is that cool? Are you ready to dive in? You guys all cool? Let's before I dive in, I'm just looking at the comments. Just getting ready to be into a story for my new program. We'll be marketing, not using webinars, but need to do this for SpithMax. Love it. Okay, awesome. So here we go. What do you usually do when you begin to do a webinar? There are exercises and things to go through before you actually start building out your webinar, right? You have to determine who it's for, what your offer is, and all of these things. But when you start a webinar, what's the first thing that you do? Do you just go right into selling and say, oh my gosh, you guys need this thing, blah, 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 right? No. You start out with introducing yourself, building rapport, connecting with the people. There's usually a minute or two of like, is this thing on? Let's see, are the comments working? Can everybody hear me? Like, give me a comment. There's all those things to engage the people at the beginning and to kind of stall a little bit and to allow more people to hop on that might be coming in a minute or two late, right? And it's just one of those things. You go into that kind of stuff, but then you get into the introduction, right? So for me, I would talk about how I'm Nick Fitzgerald. I'm a former college basketball player that also played semi-professionally. I have 4 kids and, that kind of stuff. You go through just a welcoming everybody to the webinar and all those kinds of things. And then you connect with them. That's where you share some things. You build some curiosity, so you drop a couple little hints about what you're talking about, are going to be going over and things like that, just to get people, again, who, they should have an idea, but again, you just reiterate. Then you excite, you share something that's way cool. You talk about some awesome thing at the end, or you talk about some, cool incentive, or, just something to get people excited. And through that, you go through persuasion as well. You start to get them to, again, connect with you, see you as an expert, see you as the authority, but also as a person who understands them, right? And so I kind of think of the intro / building rapport part of a webinar as it's kind of like a first date. You know what I mean? What do you do when you go on a first date? Anybody? You get to know each other, right? You talk about your families, your background, all of those kinds of things. And you just have lots of fun getting to know. They share a little bit about themselves and those kinds of things. So you can kind of see, if you look at a first date, the intro, build rapport of an actual date, okay? So there's a welcome, oh, hey, how's it going? You're picking them up or you're meeting them somewhere. So there's your introduction, right? Then you connect. You start talking about, oh, so where are you from? Oh, cool. I really love your eye color. Or, you start to do those kinds of things. You do things to pique curiosity. You drop little nuggets to see if there's interest, right? And if there are, then you give them more. And, you build and build. You don't just say, you just don't dump your whole life story and everything that's going on. You find your interest, you drop little nuggets here and there, you see what they respond, and then you determine to go a different course, or you drop a little bit more, right? Then you try to build up some excitement, right? You go and you do something fun that gets your state in a positive way so that they can associate it with you as the person, right? And then you kind of, there's some persuasion, right? If you like the person, you have to do things and persuade them to want to like you enough to want to go on a second date, right? So do you see how the intro, the first part, of a webinar is like a quick first date. This is not an hour-long part. This is like in the first 10 minutes or so of your webinar, where you just go through and you do these things. You talk about the first date stuff. Now, with persuasion, there are 5 different things to look at that Russell Brunson talks about in the Expert Secrets. So not only are you sharing like your first date, getting to know you type of stories, stuff that talks about your background. Like I would talk about how I've worked on 13 feature films, 2 television series, tons of commercials, and shot for the NPPA Western Region Station of the Year, the NBC affiliate here in Salt Lake City, as a freelance photojournalist. You see how that builds up credibility and authority, that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to stories in the visual medium, right? And then you go through these 5 areas as well during the introduction. First, you justify their failures, right? So people who are coming to your thing, your webinar, are seeing your services or you as a potential solution to problems that they're having. And they have failed. That's why they're looking and searching, right? So you justify their failures. What kinds of stories that would you need to tell to justify failures? So we have your welcome stuff. I'm going to keep a little tab here. Then we have justifying failure stories, okay? Next is allaying their fears. If they are there, they have fears and worries. They have failed. They have not had things work. And so they're worried. Is this going to happen again? Am I going to fail again? What happens if this does fail? Those kinds of things. You need to share your experiences with the failures that you had and the fears that you had, again, to connect them to you so that they know that they're not alone in thinking this. But then also to just say, hey, I know what you're feeling, right? So there's another one. Next type of story, throwing rocks at their enemies, right? If, like for me, if you're coming to me and I'm doing a webinar about how you need to use stories for your webinars, let's just say, then I need to be talking about throwing rocks at your enemies. Who are the enemies of people who are doing webinars and things like that? Be like, so many people just say that you need to do your webinar and follow this platform or follow this outline and you're going to make tons of money. But I'm here to tell you that they are lying to you, because it takes a whole lot more than just following an outline in order to connect with people and get them to take them on a journey to want to buy something at the end of your webinar, right? Do you see how you kind of do that? So there is throwing rocks at enemies. Then after that, there is confirmed suspicions. Now, it's one of those things. I was watching a webinar earlier. Again, if you came in just a minute or two ago, you missed me talk about you need to stay to the end. I'm going to drop a link to an example of an amazing webinar full of fantastic stories. And I'll share with you the numbers that show you that it works. Telling stories sells stuff in webinars, okay? But you need to confirm suspicions. If you're attacking traditional education, like schools don't want you to know that you can learn all this stuff on your own. They want you to pay money, right? I could say like these gurus that say you should be doing webinars want you to pay, and they want your money because they know that you're going to go and then blah blah blah, right? So you confirm the suspicions that they have. Again, it aligns you and them, shows that you understand them and that you're going forward. So that's that. And then the other kind of story in the intro is encouraging their dreams. People want to have the life that they want, right? They want to have money and freedom and all of those words and cliches that go along with it, right? Encourage that. Build upon it. Build that little bit of hope. Talk about, I know that you've failed. I know that that you're worried about this, and that you're worried that other people are going to take and try and steer you down this thing that isn't really going to serve you, blah, blah, blah. But you're not wrong for wanting to do this, right? So there are the different, like right there, just like in the intro portion, the first 10 or so minutes of a webinar, you've got at least 6 or 7 stories to develop, okay? And I know that you're like, oh no, I don't want you to be afraid to try and make a webinar or create a webinar because it takes some work, okay? I want you to just know that it's okay. There is some work that has to go on in it, and just following an outline of a welcome, a connect, a curiosity, pique curiosity, excite the audience, and persuade them by going through these 5 little things. Just know that you can do that, but you have to do work in developing and sharing messages and stories that build camaraderie and connect them to you, set you apart as an authority so that they'll actually listen to you, but also engage their mind. Okay, so the intro / building rapport section of your webinar is kind of like a first date, okay? That's what it is. So then after that, you move on to the next part where you talk about the one thing, your epiphany, the idea that you had, and how you came up with it, okay? So again, you want to get their curiosity. Now, when I think of curiosity, when you're talking about your one thing, what you're not saying like, here's my offer, here's my thing that I want you to buy. No, it's like you've talked about, like for me, I wrote down this example, like if I can make entrepreneurs believe that storytelling in their webinars is the key to selling more products and is only attainable through my story webinar blueprint, then all of their objections and concerns become irrelevant, and they have to give me money, right? That's like my big thing. If I can get entrepreneurs to believe that their stories, sharing their stories in their webinars will make them get them more sales, then that is my big thing, right? If I can convince you right now that you need to be telling your stories and developing them in a very specific way to sell the stuff in your webinar, and that I am the one that can help you build that, then you're going to want to partner with me, right? It just seems like a normal thing. So that is my one thing that I'm focusing on, right? So you want to pique their curiosity. Now, at this point, I think of piquing their curiosity kind of like a movie trailer. Okay, and I'm going to use lots of movie examples from here on out, just because that's the way my brain operates. I'm going to grab a drink really quick. Let me know in the comments, is this making sense? Am I moving too quick? Is this making sense? Go in the comments, give me some likes and hearts if this is good, okay? Isn't that great? Just kidding. Hey, I've got some good people on my little watch party as well. Hop in the comments on the main thing if you want, so I can see it. So Anne says lots of sense. Good, great. Anybody else? Any other concerns before I move on into talking about these 3 parts of the one thing portion of your webinar? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so again, curiosity, piquing curiosity at the beginning. It's like a movie trailer, right? You're just going to give a little snippet of, how things were and what this thing is, and then you move into the story. Okay, so the next thing that you do after getting some curiosity stirred up again, after building rapport and introducing yourself, and going through those 5 different areas, you will go through and talk about that one thing. So again, I use the example here. I wrote down, if I can make entrepreneurs believe that storytelling in their webinars is the key to selling more products and is only attainable through my webinar story blueprint, then all of their other objections and concerns become irrelevant, and they have to give me money. So that is the thing that I'm saying. So like I go in, it has to be very matter of fact. If this happens, then this happens. So I think of the big domino, the one thing, the big domino as it's talked about in Expert Secrets. It's kind of like when Frodo has to get rid of the one ring, and throw it into Mount Doom. Okay? If he does, evil is destroyed, harmony comes back to Middle Earth, and everything's good. If he fails, everything falls apart, right? So that is where you talk about that story, about what that big thing is, and all the things that were happening in your life and in your experiences that put you in that self-discovery or that path to enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, where you had the aha and said, this is the thing that will change the world for these people, right? So again, the big domino is kind of like throwing the ring into Mount Doom. Now, then after that, you go into your origin story. Who here has heard the term origin story? Show me by a bunch of thumbs up and hearts. And if you want to comment, be like, I know what an origin story is. Just let me know. This is used so broadly and so much in entrepreneurial circles. You get told, tell your origin story, or Russell calls it Epiphany Bridge, right? Your Epiphany Bridge story. And it's funny because that's a great title for it. And the Epiphany Bridge is all about, I'm looking at, so, sorry, I got distracted by comments because my phone had a whole bunch of hearts. There weren't any hearts going on over here in the group or the page one. But so this is when you kind of had that aha moment. You tell the story about what led you to decide and discover this big domino, this one thing, right? So you talk about all of the troubles and the struggles and everything that you were going through, all of the things in your life that put you on the path to discover this new thing and how it impacted and changed your life once you discovered it, right? So I think of your origin story, again, that's used so broad. And before I got into entrepreneurial circles, I thought the origin story for me was synonymous with superhero movies. So your origin story is kind of like your own version of a Marvel movie. Okay? Has anybody seen Marvel movies? No spoilers. I haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet. But if you have seen, Thor and Iron Man and Captain America, the First Avenger, and Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy 1, those are origin stories, right? For those characters. You are sharing your origin story, the things that happened in your life that put you on the path of discovery. Now, I'll get into a little bit of a technical part of the story part of it, is you don't want to start from when you were born if it's really not pertinent. Find the conflict, the entry and the beginning of the conflict in your life that led you to discover this new idea. This is one big thing, this big domino, okay? That's where you want to start, and you build an origin story. So I forgot to keep tabs, so we have, curiosity is another type of story, your big domino story, and your origin story. And each one of those stories is filled with smaller micro stories that you piece together. You talk about how when you were in high school, you always thought about this and you didn't think it was possible. And then you went to college and you had this professor say these things. Like each one of those transitions is its own separate story that you can flesh out and tell in more detail in some arenas, or you can just keep brief that brings people along the journey, right? But each one of these big stories is filled with smaller stories that you need to be thinking deliberately about, because you're taking your audience and the people on your webinar on a journey, and you want them at the end to buy your product or service or whatever it is that you're offering at the end of your webinar, right? So, Aaron asks on my watch party, you should have a variety of origin stories, right? You will develop a different set of origin stories for each type of product, because not everything that you do and offer and sell is going to come from the exact same experience. Think of Russell Brunson, right? You see the stories that he tells, his origin stories. He has a few that he goes through, but they are for specific things. Like the 2 Comma Club X coaching program, which I'm a part of, that Aaron's a part of, that Ann's a part of, is something that when he started that, he had already built his business and had success. So his origin story isn't going to be, going back to potato guns or when he had the idea for a sales funnel. It's different, right? So for your different types of products and offers, you're going to have different origin stories. And yes, there's going to be some overlap where some of them might translate and carry over into one and to the other and that kind of stuff. But you will have multiple stories, okay? But this one for a webinar, I always talk about begin with the end in mind. What is your goal aside from having them buy? What you want them to do. You want them to buy. What else do you want them to feel and think along the way And that will help you identify the stories that support it, right? So, again, to review the one thing, curiosity is kind of like your little movie trailer where you just give a little bit of a tease as to what you're going to be talking about, what that big thing is. You think of all of like the Star Wars trailer that I watched a couple weeks live with you guys. It just shows little things and gets everyone excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. It didn't reveal plot lines, at least that we know, because we don't know the whole story. We saw glimpses into the journey, into the story, and it got us excited. So that's what you do, and then you go into the one, the big domino, or the one thing, which is kind of like, it's kind of like throwing the ring into Mount Doom. That is what your big domino is. If I throw the ring into the volcano, this is Lord of the Rings if you don't know what I'm talking about, then if I throw it in, evil is destroyed, peace is restored to Middle Earth, and life is good. If I don't, things fall apart and it's the end of the world, right? So that is your big thing. What is the thing that if you can convince them of this, then it knocks down all of their other objections and stuff. Like Frodo could be like, well, I don't want to do it. It's like, okay, but you've been chosen for this. And if you don't, the whole world ends. Right? So he's just like, okay, I'll do this, right? And we'll give you this team. You see how that is. So that's the big domino. And then the origin story, again, is like your own version of a Marvel movie or superhero movie where we learn about who you are, where you came from, what pain or struggle or whatever happened in your life led you on the path that you're on now, right now in this webinar to talk about this thing. Okay? Next. Is that making sense? Can I get some reactions here? Just so am I moving too fast, or am I hitting it? So mark that. Okay. So give me a comment. I'm gonna get another drink. I'm talking so fast, my mouth is getting dry. Excellent. Ann says just right. Getting some thumbs up and stuff. Thanks, Michael. Good to have you, brother. So next we move on into the 3 secrets. These are the things that you discovered when you came up with this offer, right? These are the things that through your trials, through your tribulations, through your successes and your failures that put you on the path to be like, okay, I get this. And all that kind of stuff. So there are 3 secrets, right, that you go through. And some people call them secrets. Some people call them tricks, truths, whatever it is. You know what that is, especially if you've been in the entrepreneurial circles and watched the webinar. Everyone uses the 3 secrets method. So whatever you call it, there are 3 things. And one is the vehicle / new opportunity, right? So this is the thing. So this would be like I talked about my big domino statement earlier. If I can make entrepreneurs believe that storytelling in their webinars is the key to selling more products and is only attainable through my webinar story blueprint, then all other objections and concerns become irrelevant and they have to give me money. Right? So what is the vehicle in that statement? It is the webinar story roadmap, blueprint, whatever you want, your thing, the new vehicle. Now, I think of the vehicle / new opportunity. It's kind of like the Force. Okay? Star Wars nerd, if you haven't noticed, if this is your first time ever watching me live, I am a huge Star Wars nerd, so I'm going to use Star Wars, A New Hope, and all of those movies as examples, right? So your vehicle / new opportunity is kind of like the Force. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, he doesn't know anything about the Force. It's something that existed in the universe, in the galaxy, but he had no idea what it was, right? And then he meets Ben Kenobi, and Ben teaches him about the Force, and then he learns about it. It's something new. It's a new way of looking, a new way of living, all this kind of stuff, but it's always been there. He just needed somebody or something to get him introduced to it. Okay? So you think of your experience and your offer, your aha, your epiphany bridge, which is another word for your origin story, right? What was that thing, that new thing that you discovered? So you talk about that those are the stories that you develop. And you can go into a deeper dive. You can cover briefly on it in an origin story, but in the 3 secrets, that is when you can really expound on these kinds of things. So the vehicle / new opportunity is kind of like the Force for Luke Skywalker. So you're Luke Skywalker in the story, and your new idea, new opportunity is the Force. Make sense? Does that make sense? If you haven't seen Star Wars, I'll apologize because I'm going to use it. You need to go and watch it. Not only because it's just amazing movies, they're the best, but the structure of storytelling throughout all of them is like nailed. Back to the Future is another one to go and watch for a perfect story structure and character arcs and stuff, right? So after you talk about that vehicle and the new opportunity, then you move on to step 2, secret 2, which talks about the ability to use the vehicle. So, or internal beliefs is another term that is thrown around for it. So when you think of your ability, talking about and telling the stories about your ability to use the new vehicle, your internal beliefs, it's kind of like, again, Star Wars, it's kind of like Luke Skywalker lifting his ship out of the swamp on Dagobah in The Empire Strikes Back. First of all, give me thumbs up and stuff for Empire Strikes Back references. It's the best movie. It's my favorite movie. But you think of the internal belief, like in that scene, in the scene where Luke is trying to lift his ship out of the swamp, he is, trying to lift it up by using the Force. Obviously, he can't physically lift it out of the swamp. He crashed it, and it's in mud and water and all sorts of junk. He uses this new vehicle, this Force. He's done some practice. He's been taught. He's seen that it works, but he hasn't tried anything major with it. He's lifted some rocks. He's balanced upside down and like lifted rocks with his mind, right? But this one, he tries to lift his ship, but he doesn't do it, right? And why is it that he doesn't? Yoda does this amazing speech about it, and it's all because like he tries and he can't. He's like, I can't. It's too big. It's too heavy, or whatever. And then Yoda, this tiny little green dude, lifts it and gets it out. And Luke is just like flabbergasted. Is like, I can't believe it. And Yoda says, that is why you failed. Luke had seen that it worked, but he didn't believe that he could do it on a larger scale or whatever. And that is why he failed. He didn't have the belief inside himself that he could lift that ship out of the swamp. That is the same kind of story that you need to be telling with the use and putting the new vehicle together, right? People are going to see it and be like, oh, that's great, but that might work for you, but it's not going to work for me. This is where you show them that, and then you show them how it's possible. Like, it would be one thing if Luke lifted it and he's like, oh, and he drops back in and he says, I can't do it, it's too big. And then we go to the next scene. But then Yoda, somebody else, the mentor, you in this story, or, that kind of thing to the audience, lifts it out and makes it happen. So we see that it is possible and you can overcome it. It's just a mindset thing, right? So that is the secret number 2 stories that go into it. Secret number 3, I wish I had the Force too, Aaron. That would be so awesome. I'd get into a lot of trouble because I'd mess around with it. But like, secret number 3, then we go on to secret number 3. And that's the number 1 thing that they believe is keeping them from getting started, or external beliefs of other people, right? Of their surroundings and things like that. Now, I think of this, again, Star Wars. The external belief is kind of like Han Solo in A New Hope. So we go, and Luke has just been introduced to the Force. They're on the Millennium Falcon going to rescue the princess. Or go to Alderaan, to get the princess. And Luke is doing some Jedi exercises and learning. He's starting to understand and test out some things, and he actually gets it to work, right? And he has his first win. But there's somebody else or an external thing, even after you saw a result, that Han Solo talks about. This is the quote. I want to read it exactly. It says, hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a blaster at your side, kid. Right? Obi-Wan is teaching him this new opportunity, this new vehicle about the Force. It's a mystical energy field that binds the universe together, right? And he even like Han Solo's there, he sees it work, but he still says, there's hokey old belief systems and old weapons and stuff like that are no comparison to this. So other people and other external things are going to say, you still can't do it, even when they're witnessing it work. Okay? So you think of that story and how you overcame that and show them how you did through this new opportunity, right? So there's another main story, okay? So this is, right there. So I've gone through, okay, I'll just kind of recap for those of you who are joining us. We're going through a webinar setup and how to weave stories and use stories to sell more at the end, okay? So the first is intro and building rapport, which is kind of like your first date. It's just a quick 10-minute thing. You don't plan, a day-long, hours, half a day first date typically, right? It's something that's short because if it doesn't work out, you can peace out and go your separate ways. But the first part is the intro, where you build rapport, you connect, you build curiosity, excitement, and you persuade them by justifying their failures, allaying their fears, throwing rocks at enemies, confirming suspicions, and encouraging their dreams. Those are all different types of stories. Then we go into the one thing, your big domino. First, you pique some curiosity by throwing out some little movie trailer type, like a movie trailer, where you just throw out something that gets people to go, ooh, cool. Oh, wow, I'm excited to learn about that. Ooh, I want to see what this is, right? Just gets them to perk up a little bit because you're 10, 15 minutes in at this point. So it's a time to re-engage, right? And then you go in and talk about your big domino or the one thing. Then you go into your origin story and then the 3 secrets, okay? So right there, I've been keeping tally. That is 13 main stories that you need to develop just in the first 3 sections of a webinar. The 4th section is a stack, and I'm not going to go through the stack and stuff like that because there are stories that you can put into it, but that's more like, okay, here's what you're going to get, right? By doing this new opportunity. So you have 13 main stories that you need to tell. And each one of those stories has little pieces of other stories and experiences that come together to support that one thing. Okay? So you could easily double that on the story count. You're going to have like 20 to 30 like different types of stories that you're going to tell in a webinar, at least, if you're just breaking it down basically. Now, in other types of webinars, like this one that I was watching earlier today, there are literally hundreds of stories. I'm going to go watch through it again. I promise. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have a tally, and I'm going to mark every time a story is told. I want to see it, because this story or this webinar killed it, crushed it with conversions, with sales. It was incredible, and so I'm going to get in the comments and going to drop the link to it. You don't have to register for anything. You just click it and watch it. You should, and if you already saw it, watch it again. But it's incredible how much story is used, and this it just makes me like totally geek out. My spidey sense was just like story, and it's no wonder that they're having killer conversions. So first, I want to get another drink. Ask this question: how many of you is this making sense? Do you see how many different types of stories that you need to craft to put in and have an effective webinar that guides people on the journey if they show up at the beginning and finish all the way at the end and buy your thing, or if they come in late and they get engaged quick and stay engaged throughout? Do you see the importance of stories in webinars? Go in the comments and share, and then I'm going to get another drink. And also throw me some more hearts and likes and stuff. Okay. So Anne asks if it was last night. Yes, there was last night webinar that I'm going to share. It's incredible. So nobody has questions. I'm guessing that you are all understanding what I'm meaning here. So what I'm going to do, let me grab the link for it. Okay, I'm going to tell you about this webinar that I watched today. This is a webinar that is done by dudes who are super high success. Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, and Russell Brunson did this last night, and it's incredible. And these are high visibility, like people know, like pretty much everyone has heard of or knows something about Tony Robbins. Dean Graziosi is more well known. He's definitely well known in sales and entrepreneurial circles and things like that. He's coached a lot of people in real estate and turning cars into cash, all that stuff from when he was younger even. And he's been in entrepreneur. He's written lots of books, and it's been so cool to see it. And then Russell Brunson has kind of taken the marketing world by storm, right? And so those three together put together this webinar for a product that they've been developing, and they went through it. And I tell you, this is the perfect example of story after story after story after story that builds connections, that piques curiosity, that excites, that talks about what the big thing is, that talks about their origin stories and how they started this thing. Like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Russell Brunson have their own individual origin stories, but together they have their own individual stories with this thing, but then they have their combined origin story of putting this thing together, right? So you hear all of those kinds of stories. You talk about what that new opportunity is and how you use it, and your ability to use it, and talk about those internal beliefs, right? And then it's then the one thing that's keeping you from doing it, getting started, the external belief, right? They tell hundreds. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 1,000 stories between the three of them in this webinar. It's insane. So I want to drop the link for you guys to go and watch it. I just did that. Go and watch it. Like seriously, block out some time tonight or tomorrow morning and watch it. Now you don't have to worry. That link is going to be fine. It's not like going to disappear in the next 24 hours. It's got like 2 weeks that it's going to be up and live. But go and watch it and take notes and pay attention to the way that they use stories. Okay? And as you do, you'll see how effective it is. Now that webinar that I just dropped the link for, the reason I'm sharing it is an example of stories. It's one thing if they told awesome stories and everything, but it is literally crushing in sales. They had like almost 200,000 people on the webinar last night, which is insane. That's just holy crap. And they're closing, around 8 to 10%. Like that's like their sales rate. And so they had, I heard the numbers, the last numbers I heard was 6,000 sales. That's $12 million from one webinar that these three did. Do you see? It's the stories that they told and the journey that they brought all of the viewers on that got them to want to get this thing. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to go and have a $12 million webinar, but I'm not saying that you can't. You can. I just watched it. And as you take the audience and the people who show up on that journey of getting to know you, connecting, piquing curiosity, exciting them, persuading them by justifying their fears, justifying their failures, allaying their fears, throwing rocks at their enemies, confirming their suspicions, and encouraging their dreams, all of the stories that go into that. Do you see that? how they just will understand you and connect with you. Then you talk about, you throw out some more curiosity to get them excited. You throw out your kind of like a movie trailer thing that gets them to be like, oh man, I'm excited to hear about that. And then you go into that big domino / one thing, which is like throwing the ring into Mount Doom. Like that's the result. This thing, doing this thing happens. It saves the world, right? And then you go into your origin story. You talk about the new opportunity more, which is kind of like the force, this new thing that's always kind of been out there, but you finally had the breakthrough and were introduced to it by someone else or through your own research or just pure inspiration, right? And then your ability to use the vehicle and your listeners' ability to use the vehicle. Show them how it's kind of like Luke's ship in the swamp in Dagobah and how he tried and it didn't work, and he was discouraged. And then here comes Yoda, and he goes, shows him that it's possible. Knock it down, right? And then the one thing that they're keeping them from getting started, that external belief and fears of external influences, naysayers, other things like that about this new opportunity that trip them up. But you, again, show how it's possible to overcome it. Okay? So, with that said, let me check. Anne's posted some comments. She watched to see how they did the webinar, got sucked in. Exactly. You know why you got sucked in? Stories. And then I could see the value based on the stories. Exactly. It increases, like I talked about a couple days ago, when you wrap products and services in stories, it increases the perceived and literal value of it. If you hadn't seen it, go back and find it. It's incredible. Like I showed you, like literally, I increased the value of a Hanes cotton poly blend hoodie with a story, and it's a true story. So go and watch it. I showed you how Zappos became a $1.2 billion company because of the stories that were circulating about their service and how they took care of their clients and customers. Right? It totally happens in the webinar as well. And yes, they crashed the web. They broke the internet, right? So, with that said, do you see how using a webinar is good? Like you should be trying to do it, working and developing one. I'm working on one right now. But how using stories as the basis for it. That is what's going to sell at the end. That's what's going to keep people through the whole thing and keep their butts in the seats all the way to the end when you go through the stack and the offer and you say go right below and put in your credit card information and people do it. You can use this same framework. All these stories, these 13 stories that I broke down, and there's a lot more that go into it. Like I said, each one has multiple stories within. You have to use those in all aspects of your business, whether you use them in a webinar or in a Facebook Live, or you're using it as, something else. Copy on a sales letter, in an email, a video sales letter, all this stuff. These stories in this process is the way you sell your stuff and the way you sell more of your stuff. If you're already making some money, that's great. You add these stories and the things that I've been teaching, and it will go to the next level. And so go to work and put it together. Who's excited, just out of curiosity, who is excited to start to write and figure out and start to catalog their stories? Has anybody started doing that? Give me a comment. Give me some hearts and some likes. I've got Alec, my nine-year-old now, staring at me through my office door, looking at me like I'm a crazy person. But tell me if you have started cataloging and building a list of stories, and especially these types of stories that I talked about. I'm going to get another drink. If you haven't, why not? I want to hear, like in the comments, like I am kind of calling you out. If you haven't done it, why haven't you? There are things that hold all of us up. I understand that. I want to help you crush through that. And whether that's you just don't believe this or that, or it's just really hard to find time to do it, that's one thing. And then there's if you need somebody to kind of hold your hand through it, I'm happy to be that person for you as well. But you need to start doing this. We are, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is the 9th in the series. And if you haven't started applying any of the stuff, what is the deal? I'm showing you that it's super simple. And if you need help, I am here. Okay? I'm developing all sorts of stuff. I am developing a thing to help you flesh out all of your stories about webinars. And it's like almost ready. So if you want to hop on a call and talk about it and see if that's something that you want to jump into, send me a message and we'll schedule a quick 15-minute call or 20-minute call just to talk about it and see if it's something that could be useful for you. Okay? Reach out if you need help. I am here to serve and help you. That's like the thing that I love about telling stories and all that kind of stuff is, one, it connects people. I've become so close with so many people because we've shared stories back and forth, and I've helped them develop ones for their business, or we've just talked and got to know each other and shared things, right? But it's another thing now, as I've made more of my focus in making sure that people understand that I work on stories, yes, to build emotional connections, but the main purpose is to make you more money, to increase your sales, to get people to buy more of your stuff. Okay, and that's what I'm here to help you do, because I want you to make more money. I want you to live the life that you've always wanted. And I promise you that stories and storytelling, your already experiences that you've already had or that you're currently going through, and it doesn't have to be all of them, just some of them, will take your business and your sales to the entire next level, okay? So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up with this. I just love the opportunity to hear your stories. So come in the comments, ask me questions, send me a message, all of those things, and I will gladly help you however I can. Whether that's something I just say, hey, go read this article, or watch this video, or we sit down and we invest some time and some money into developing stuff specifically for you. I'm here to help you, okay? So with that said, go out, start crafting your stories. Craft your origin story, your big domino, your vehicle, your internal belief, your external belief, all those kinds of stories, and share them with me. Be like, hey, what do you think of this? That kind of stuff. I'm happy to, we can do one where all of you guys submit some of your stories, and we go through and we do another live where we say, okay, here's a great intro thing, and then we go through your thing, and then we go through all these different stuff. I want to be able to break it down and show you and give you guys the guidance that you need, whether that's like in this group thing where everyone can see it and can learn from it, or if you want to work one-on-one, let's get it done. You need to start yesterday, okay? So with that said, have an amazing day. Share your stories. Change the world. Share your stories. Make more money. Remember, it just takes one story.